How's everybody doing? Is everybody doing? That's the first question. Let me just make sure everybody is hanging out and getting in here. I'm gonna watch my own stream. Guys, how we doing? Okay, I'm bringing myself in. I'm in. I'm on. I'm live. We have arrived. How is... Oh, wait. Oh, hang on. Key information coming in here. Key information coming in from the folks. The list is, the link is unlisted. It is clearly my first day on the internet. Is that true? It's unlisted? Let's go ahead and edit it and make it listed. It is unlisted. That's interesting. Public. Okay, going public. Save. Link is now public, guys. Thank you to the chat. I didn't even see who in the chat. David said that. Okay, so the link is now, we are now public. Okay, guys, all right, woo! It's like I'm out of practice almost. It's like I haven't done a live stream in a little while, which is true. But it's good to be back. It's good to be back with everybody here on the Reason Livestream. And here, I'm seeing people ask this. KLO, is the stream public yet? The stream is public. Yes. Yep. Okay. Perfect. Guys, how's everybody doing? Listen, I'm so excited to be doing this stream because this is a stream. This is the first stream I've done, you know, in this era of streaming that we've had where we've been doing all these streams. That started in 2020. It started actually as a sort of COVID early pandemic era thing where we were like, hey, we want to just start, you know, we're all like kind of doing this weird lockdown and distancing. And that was that era, you know, where like we were making sourdough starters and contemplating the end of the world. And so we started doing this live stream as a way to connect with people, but we've always been connecting this way during the live stream. And I can now say on this live stream that for the first time really since the live stream started, I got to connect with a lot of you guys IRL. So we went to Superbooth. I mean, that's the headline. Reason Studios went to Superbooth. We had a tent set up there, really kind of nice little zone. If you came to Superbooth, I hope you came to hang out at our tent because we sort of, you know, we liberally took some territory around our tent. We had some picnic tables set up with a little sort of sunshade. We had a porch swing kind of thing there that people could hang out on. We had these little cubes that you could sit on, but they also lit up and they had the Reason logo on them. We had some like not lounge chairs, what do you call them? Lawn chairs that were like these low kind of reclining lawn chairs so people could hang out. So we had this like really great little space there that we could just all hang out in. And people did. And you guys did. Some of you guys watching came to hang out. In fact, I want to shout out to the Reason Studios Germany user group. I'm actually not sure what you guys... RSG, I think, is the initials of this group. So I'm going to assume it's Reason Studios Germany. Maybe not, because maybe it would be RSD for like Deutschland if they're actually German. I don't know. If any of you guys from the German user group, if you're in the chat... Tell me the official name for the group, and if I am right, that it's RSG. But those guys came to we get to Superbooth, and we're hearing, like, the first day we hear like buzz of like, oh, the Germans are coming, the Reason Studios German user group, they're gonna be coming to the tent. They're organizing a big like meetup at the tent, and then the second day. Everyone's like, oh, is it today? Is it today? Is that when they're coming? Where are they? Where? You know, and then it was, I think, the third day. I'm pretty sure the third day they actually showed up. Saturday, makes sense. And you know, we're all kind of hanging out at the tent. All of a sudden, like the tent has double the people, and then triple the people, and then quadruple the people. And it's like, wait, what's going on here? Oh, it's the German user group. So I got to meet a bunch of you guys, and it was so fun meeting you guys. So fun meeting everybody, but really fun meeting you guys because you've been so active. I know some of you guys from the chat. The first question I asked this whole crowd of people, I said, okay, so whose names would I know from YouTube comments or forum posts and stuff? And Now I always get the order wrong here, but mine Veg Al's producer. I think that's the correct sequence of sounds that I should be making. He was the first guy. He said his name. I was like, oh, hey, it's you. And now I know him as Philip, but I knew him by his name. Maverick, I see you're in the chat there. Awesome. It is RSG, and does that stand for Reason Studios Germany? Is that actually what it is? Do let me know. But Mine Vegas producer. That's RSG. There he is. Hey, what's up, man? So it was really fun meeting those guys. All of the Reason Studios user group that was there. It was really fun to meet you guys, and then just fun to meet everybody else. There was a guy that came from Canada named Dale who was like hanging out with us for a while. We were just kind of talking music and stuff, and a lot of other people. Just a whole lot of other people. And we were showing Objekt, demoing Objekt, and demoing Reason. And just had a lot of really fun people coming by the tent. So we came back from Super Booth with a million ideas of what we want to do next year already. In fact, I'm going to bring our guest on early rather than giving him a big wind-up. Mattias, what was your big Super Booth takeaways or fun that was had?
I mean, I've been there a couple of times, but I'm still always surprised at just the sheer amount of synths that exist.
Right.
But it was also really fun to have a proper big presence. We've been there 2 years before, and it was kind of a small desk upstairs.
Right.
But going big, I mean, people drop by all the time. My throat was immensely sore.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. Throat, feet, all things that could be sore were sore. But no, it was really fun. And I mean, I honestly came back and I was like, oh, okay, now next year we're gonna let's go even bigger, let's do even more. You get so many ideas. I'm just looking. Oh, I see. I thought this was about the stream. It was not. Andrew, I'll throw it up on screen since I'm reading it silently. Sometimes please do a video about how you guys produce your promo tutorial videos. I'd love to know your process. I could do it. I mean, it's just a lot of tedious work, Andrew. That's really what it is. It's a whole bunch
Start by following a punk band around the world with a camera for 10 years and then
yeah, right. I guess that actually was part of the training. Ryan, your German is amazing. I guarantee you my German is not amazing. I may have said 3 German words while I was there. And I have this anytime I have to say Strasse for a street, I still go like, even that doesn't feel right. Like when they say whatever, I'm not even gonna try and say any words. Okay. And yes, Maverick confirms Reason Studios Germany. That is correct. First 2 German tutorials about Objekt are online. Oh, there you go. Anyone who's German speaking, go check out Maverick's channel and watch his tutorials in German, I presume, on Objekt. So, which Mattias, I guess that brings us to the topic at hand. I mean, that's why we're doing this live stream.
Indeed.
It is to talk about Objekt, and I'm going to assume to some degree, although I'm not going to assume too much, that people watching know that we have a new instrument out that is called Objekt, and that is a physical modeling synth. That's sort of if you're at this stream and you don't know that much, well, now you know that much. But but we're gonna trust that most people know that. But I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that, because I always have to kind of go back to being I'm just a Reason user, I'm just a country lawyer. I don't, I'm not part of the inside baseball team. So when I see these new instruments, that's what happens is I see them not as Ryan, the guy who's going to be making some videos about it for the launch and knows about it in advance and all that stuff. I see it as Ryan, the Reason user who, started using Reason way back and gets excited by all the new stuff the same way any Reason user would. And when I saw that you guys were working on a physical modeling synth, it felt to me like I felt 2 emotions. One was, oh yeah, that's like a major kind of hole in the Reason rack that we haven't really filled. Like we've dabbled with it, and maybe we'll talk a little bit about where we've dabbled in Europa, where we've dabbled in Kong, where we've dabbled in the sense of friction. But this, in terms of tackling it head on, it was a big gap. So I thought, ooh, and then my second thought was, Yeah, because, and I don't say this pointing fingers at any other physical modeling synths, but rather pointing fingers at every other physical modeling synth, because I just haven't gotten good results with things that I've tried with physical modeling. And physical modeling has always been this thing that has the promise of amazingness and then the results of not amazingness. And so I sort of thought like, ooh, oh, can we do this? You know, but tell me about it. Why you guys must have gone through a similar emotional sort of cycle there when you even came up with the concept.
Yeah. I mean, part of why we did it is exactly what you said. Is like, we love doing instruments. We've done instruments since we started the company. And, you know, which instruments haven't we done? That list is long, but it's getting shorter, you know? So you start going, what is there, right?
Right.
But I personally really like these sounds that have like a realistic character. And then I started listening to just music everywhere, you know. That's part of my job, is also knowing what's going on in music, you know, underground scenes or clubs or chart toppers or whatever. And there were all these sounds, you know, samples or recordings or something that wasn't synthetic, even in the hardest of techno tracks, right? And I went, okay, you could get samples, but then you're kind of stuck with whatever you get. So let's try to make these sounds and let the user tweak them. And that was really the idea, was let's make a physical modeling synth that isn't like Friction, that isn't trying to reproduce a certain instrument perfectly, but rather has the character of real instruments and gives you the control to go, I'll tweak this, I'll change this, I'll get the character, I'll get something that sounds more like a sound I made rather than the best possible strings, right? That's pretty much where it came from. But it was a nervous development period because, you know, Peter, who's the DSP guru and co-founder, when we come up with these ideas, we basically send him away and go, you know, go research. You know, and he does that, and he comes back and he goes like, prototype time. And this time he came back and it's like, I think I figured out the resonator now. I think it's good. It can do everything we talked about. We talked about, you know, bells and strings and whatever. But it only played a timpani. That was the only thing he showed. So there I was like, you know, white in the face going.
Like, radical timpani coming soon.
Yeah, that's going to be hard. But then he explained, like, if you can make that very convincing, if you can make a skin drum in a very convincing way, the model is good enough to do a lot of sounds. And as soon as we got our hands on it and started experimenting, it's like, no one knows. Now, some people
know. It makes no sense to me that he knows that. Like, I understand that he knows DSP. He's been doing it for forever, since Nord days and all that. You know what I mean? And I get that. But I don't get where, in the midst of all your work that you're doing, that you come upon that learning of learning that idea that a timpani is the key to mastering a good physical modeling.
This is why I don't do the code.
right.
But it was a fun development process, longer than some that we've had on other instruments, because it is different. Like, everyone knows, you know, how to do an oscillator that does a sawtooth and a low pass filter.
Right.
But here it's kind of, you really need to spend most of the time, maybe not actually writing the code, but playing with it and tweaking every single value and how it's all connected until all of the results are pretty much good, right? And then you start making patches and you go, I'm so close to this sound being perfect, tweak the values again. And that's a bulk of the period, right?
Right. There's a question that came in that says, Mattias, can't you already do that with all the other instruments? This is the question I love for Objekt, because I honestly thought when I started playing with Objekt, I just a confession here. When I started playing with Objekt and I was hearing some of these sounds, and they're amazing sounds, and I thought to myself, okay, for the first time in a decade plus of making content for Reason, I'm not going to see the comment that I see every time we drop a new synth. Because every time we drop a new synth, it doesn't matter what it is, someone in the comments goes, you can do that with Subtractor. I can make that with Maelstrom. Give me 2 Thors and I can do that sound. Like, that's such a common thing. And in some sense, I love that. I'm not complaining about that attitude. That's awesome. I love the idea that people hear something new and try and make it with the tools they have, because, like, maybe you can, great. Maybe you can't, but you come up with something else cool, great. Like, there's no lose to that win-win scenario. But I thought, when I heard this one, I thought it's the first time we're not going to hear that. No one's going to hear these things and go, I can do that with Europa. And yet the comments still show up.
Well,
So,
part of why we're here is to show all the things you probably can't do with other instruments.
well,
so.
right. So I guess maybe hopefully we'll put some of that to bed. But I think if I bring it up again, I think what T.A. Mason was asking maybe is when he says that, I'm guessing from where it fell in the in this chat that he was referring to the idea of making sounds that sort of sound acoustic but aren't identifiable. I think it was that sort of idea that you were talking about. And I guess to some extent,
Sure. Like,
other
absolutely.
instruments.
The thing is, it's the journey there. How long is that journey and how complex is that journey, right? So
Right.
FM synthesis, that was pretty much when it came out. That was the promise of it. It's like, oh, synthesis method, and now the instrument sounds like instruments. Now, with the
Well, I mean, to be fair,
blessings of
even
being many
early-
years in the front. But
you look at early Moog synthesizers and the work of like Wendy Carlos, and that was like, oh my god, it sounds just like a clarinet. Like we've always been chasing that. And in fact, I heard someone say once, and I don't know if it's true, but it was a music historian, so I'm going to believe them, that they sort of had this belief through their research and work that the creation of all instruments is actually us. Often we were always emulating the human voice, the flute, the clarinet, the saxophone, all these things were us attempting to capture the tones that we get through singing, and we just kind of always got it a little bit wrong, and you'd be like, oops, it's a bassoon instead. Oh, well, that's cool. Okay, well, we'll call it a bassoon. Let's keep trying. And then you try something else, you go, oops, it's a zither or whatever. So let's see. Let me just take a look at what other... guys have to get their harmonic frequency theory study going. It makes it easier. Okay. Sure.
There is truth to that comment. We'll talk a little bit about it, I think.
Cool. Joey Luck says Peter made very convincing brass sounds in algorithm. Does he mean Peter Ubel? Is he talking about?
Yeah.
I see. Right.
That's part of his MO. Whichever synth we ever made, he always sneaks in a bunch of reproductions of things that sound real, because that's the most fun patch challenge.
Oh, I see. Right.
And it's like, I know the synth so well that I can make it sound like something else.
Right. When I was 10 years old, I got sick and I had to hang out in my room with my brother. We were both sick, and it was like one of those kind of things. I don't know what it was, not like norovirus or something, but it was one of those things where like our parents were like, "You guys are disgusting in Germany. You're just gonna like quarantine in your room,
go in there
a weekend." So we did, and we took. My brother had just gotten his DX11 synthesizer, not vintage. This is like him just getting a DX11 synthesizer, and we learned FM synthesis in our rooms. 10, 11-year-olds read the manual. And we made only one sound that whole weekend. There was a brass sound, and we called it Kiss My Brass, and we thought we were so clever. We were like, ooh, we kind of cursed, but we didn't really curse. And like, we were so into it. But speaking of, you were talking about us kind of playing around with, whenever we make an instrument, playing around with real sounds. We also play around with physical modeling a little bit. And I wondered if I could just ask you a little bit about some of the places where you might find physical modeling in the Reason Rack that isn't in Objekt, and how that differs, I guess. Like why we didn't sort of just put a check mark next to physical modeling and go, oh, it's right. We got it already.
Yeah, I think it is. So there's a bunch of physical modeling that are more or less advanced in Reason. So Friction's the big one, where it really is physically modeled strings. But then you also have the drums in Kong. You have the physical modeling series of the drums.
Right.
And technically, there's the Carplus Strong oscillator in Europa, which is a type of physical modeling approximated. Like, I don't know much about the tech in there, but it is.
But Carplus Strong, if you choose that as the oscillator in Europa, you're dabbling in physical modeling.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
But the big difference is that all of those are very purpose-built, right? So the drums... The snare sounds like a snare, and all the controls do things that are snare adjacent. It's actually quite hard to make it sound like a cymbal. Doesn't work. And that's one approach to physical modeling that's pretty common and also really useful. Is like, we make this model that's really good for this thing, and all the controls then make a lot of sense for that thing, but it also keeps it reined in. And the reason we did Objekt was to just try doing the opposite. What happens if we don't put everything in a context that's, string or brass, but rather say, here are the actual synthesizer building blocks of physical modeling. let's see what people make. Let's see what we can make. Like, we didn't even know what we could make until we started making the patches.
Which is a kind of daunting, I think a daunting goal to some degree, to say we're going to give people access to the raw controls. We're going to introduce them to a whole new type of synthesis and a whole new language of synthesis, which I think, I mean, let us know in the comments, guys, how are you getting on with this? You know, the concepts of like collision and the dampening and playing around with the frequencies on the front of Objekt. Are people, have you adapted? What I found is that I very quickly was just like, oh, okay, got it. Resonators, exciters, cool. I mean, not to say that not like nailed it, mastered it.
I get it.
Yeah. No, not that. There's a long. I mean, that's what I and all of us love about Reason, is that these synths have so much depth that you can go into them. But I did very quickly feel comfortable on it in a way that I'd have to look at the other Reason synths and think about this for a second, but I may be more instantly comfortable on Objekt than I am on even some other Reason synths. So, yeah.
But I do give the design team a lot of credit there. Like, it took a long time to figure out how to present this in a way that, even though it's kind of strange and new to most people, still is digestible enough.
Right. Ramrodder says, I never knew my grade 12 physics would come in handy. Yeah,
I know, right?
Yeah, I'd love it now if there's a teacher in high school, when one of the kids does that, like, when are we going to use this stuff? They go, I'll tell you when. You're going to use it when you're making a banging beat and you want a new sound. But a Natural Sign made some Objekt combinators. That's great. Love it. Love to hear that.
We're going to talk a little bit about that too.
Bite Goatee says, getting access to the engine is a breath of fresh air. That's how I felt too. And this is part of, again, I'm going to just kind of like point fingers at every physical modeling option out there. But I do feel that a lot of times, because it's a weirder thing, the UI designers and the UX designers of these plugins try to create these interfaces where they remove the rawness of physical modeling in a way that is, I guess, more palatable because it's like, oh, I get it. I just like move the slider between wood and glass.
Yeah, right. I mean, I think that's a really good solution, and we definitely have abstracted a lot of things. Like, we haven't opened the box entirely, because that would be a very different thing. But still, it's worth noting that we just, we wanted to make it feel unique. Like, there's a reason to get this. Like, it's not like the same as something else. There was someone asking in the chat, since Robotic Bean, Niklas Backlund, has joined Reason Studios.
Oh, right.
Is there a link between Objekt and his synth Resonance?
Aha, right.
And the very short answer is none whatsoever. Because that's actually built on the open source code from Mutable Instruments with his very clever additions.
Oh, cool.
Which is very, very different.
Dan Freeland says, I seem to only come up with one, crazy sounds, and two, bell sounds. I'm sure we'll
get a bit of both.
Yeah, we'll get a bit of both in what we're doing today. But also, is there any tip you could give Dan in terms of like just one thing you could do to how to find the point between crazy and bell?
Yeah, I think one of the best ways to not get bell sounds and get string sounds is turning off coupling, so that the frequencies of the delays don't actually interact.
There you go. And that is on by default. If he's resetting, because it sounds like he might be, if he's resetting Objekt to kind of its default thing, coupling
we'll show a bit of that too.
Yeah. So should we?
I'm writing down stuff.
Oh, good. Look at you. That's great. But okay, let me see. I'm just looking at some other comments here. Were you inspired by Mutable Instruments Elements module for the concept of Objekt?
In terms of making great sounding physical modeling sounds, definitely, but otherwise not really. And especially, it's different what I'm inspired by and what Peter's inspired by.
Right.
Like, he definitely doesn't have any modular gear and doesn't want it. Like, he made that, but he made that 30 years ago. But I really like those things. But I also wanted to make a point out of, actually not being the same. So Elements is based on modal synthesis, which is not the focus of Objekt.
Right.
It's one of the three tabs, and it's a little bit more crude than the Mutable Instruments version of that, which is quite complex and beautifully arranged.
Right.
But a different thing.
Gotcha. A couple other comments I'll throw up here. Got lost in Object, didn't get back to my other project, so I had to shelf it until the main one is done. Too much to do in that thing. Yeah, it's.
I think that's positive, but I'm not sure.
That's a positive. That is a positive comment. Yeah, that's an occupational hazard, I guess, of getting new stuff while you're in the middle of a project. This guy, Antipatter, says Object gives so much interesting texture to the sound with external Foleys and the randomize function. It is indeed an instant nightmare machine. And it can make some creepy, nightmarish type sounds, really epic cinematic sounds. There's stuff, if people check out Adam Fielding's social media feed, I think he tweeted it, maybe he put it on Instagram, but he's working on some patches, and he has some cinematic stuff that's like, you can tell that he was in the neighborhood of Nightmare, but then he contained it to make it super musical and actually useful. It's not just like atonal scary. It's like,
sometimes the crazy sounds are only crazy until you turn down the volume of them in the mix.
Right, that's true. God, that's a good. I'm gonna put that in my mental note.
Tattoo it across your chest.
Yeah, totally. Let's see. Mind Vegal's producer says, I made a cool object loop using only object. This is the thing I'm noticing people doing, which I did when I made the object video. There's this self-imposed challenge. Can I make a whole track using just object? And the answer is, you can. But I think that when people do that, they really are having fun with sort of the different music that comes out of you when you do that, because you are working with different sounds. So here's a question that maybe you could just answer, because Object needs a sampler on it, and this is I think comes from a misunderstanding maybe of how Object's working, right?
I think the answer to this question, that isn't really a question, I think that's part of what we're gonna show. It kind of already has. If you put a sampler in it.
All right, so Macho Man is going, oh yeah, okay.
Yeah. We'll have a lot of stuff to go over.
Okay, great. Well then, Mattias, I guess on that note, should we maybe throw up Reason and start digging into some stuff?
Let's do it.
Okay. I'm coming over to your screen. Kaboom! We've arrived. An object is on the screen.
It is. So I think, I'm gonna give you some credit too. You did the amazing 30-minute tutorial on Object. So a lot of people have seen the basics of how this kind of works. But just a quick refresher for anyone who might not have seen that and who's still like, what is physical modeling really? Right. So let's just go over that before I dive into some more advanced tips and stuff we haven't shown.
I'll also say I've watched you present this to press and artists and stuff for like the last 2 months, and every time I saw it, I kept learning things. So even if you did see my tutorial, this is it'll be a handy little recap. So.
Yeah, so I've just added an object here and I've reset the patch, which makes it the simplest possible resonator that you can hear right now. So just to recap, the thing with physical modeling is that it's kind of made up out of two elements. It's the thing that kind of strikes or hits or excites the instrument, which is the exciter section, and it's the actual instrument, the object that's resonating, and that's this middle section. So in this case, I have this one single frequency that I can tune up and down, and I can add more if I want. But the exciter is really kind of how I play it. So right now, you can listen to it even. I'll turn this off. It's a little click. And this little click, like this resonator is kind of listening, and frequencies come in, and if the frequencies are the same or close by to that frequency, it goes, ooh, I'm gonna vibrate too. That sounds fun. So if I start changing these controls, you can hear it changes the character. It's brighter, less bright, more click or less click, how hard I hit, and even just the level, you can make it really loud or soft. And these are controlled by velocity here. So that's kind of the basic way to excite one of these resonator. But there's also other ways. So this was shown a lot, but just to show again, you have this noise section. So I can turn down the impact and I can use the noise instead. Turn up the level a little bit. And now it's excited by this. Oops, there we go. Excited by this static.
Oh yeah.
You can hear it here. And there's also an external input to excite it. So like how the resonator gets excited is quite flexible. And we'll talk a little bit about what you can do with the external input, which I think is one of the cooler things you can do. And then the actual resonator, if you've seen the tutorials, you kind of know what's up. But the basic idea is that this middle section is the frequencies. So in modal, it's actually nice to start with. This is the one that's similar to the Mutable Instruments one, but it's actually quite a few less frequencies. But here you actually hear 1, 2, 3. They're all separate, right?
And that's more like even like organ drawbars, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's pinging filters basically. But this one, the only way to get it complex is to simply dial in frequencies that, sound like something, or they're kind of, are they in tune or out of tune? So here I'm starting to get a different character because I've just chosen some random frequencies. And all of these little presets here, like drawbars, like you said, or like bell, are simply made up of these frequencies, and you hear them separately, and you set their decay and gain separately.
Right.
These objects are different. They're not filters, they're delays. And that's what I wanted to mention, coupling. Because someone said, it becomes bells or it becomes chaos. And coupling is basically every one of these delays feeding back into each other. Because what happens in a real instrument when you hit a string or a body is that all of the parts resonate together and interact, right? The entire body of the instrument is resonating. So if I add a couple of more here and kind of tune them differently. Oops, turn it on. It gets kind of atonal. I'm not hearing these specific pitches that I actually chose. But if I turn off coupling, it behaves more like modal, where I have separate, frequencies that all ring out without affecting each other that much.
Right.
So if you want something that's more string-like, for example, turning off coupling can be a really nice start just to get the overtones. But with coupling on, you get much more exciting sounds, I'd say. But that's pretty much the basic layout of Objekt. And I think the more we talk about the advanced tips, the more important it is to remember the exciter strikes the resonators. And there are several resonators. And you can use more, or you can just use one, right? So I hope that makes sense to everyone. And say something in the comments if, hang on, you never mentioned this. What's going on?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So if
which definitely can happen.
There was, I'm going to see if I can roll up and find it. Oh, wait, I think I might have flagged it. This might, this sort of goes into the understanding of Objekt as well. I'd like to see sample import for patch conversion from real world sounds. That is, obviously that's something Objekt doesn't do, but it's also sort of not the way it.
Yeah, just theoretically, it probably could, but it's a very different thing, because it would mean like analyze the frequency of a sound that comes in and try to match the frequencies with the model, and we kind of. That's what we didn't want, right? We wanted it to be open-ended and want you to, just try and change things.
Right.
But it's still a fair bit of feedback, I think. Just to show a little bit of how you can be smart with the exciter. So this is going to be a series of, let's call them pro tips. Because we've done a lot of tutorials, so doing a live stream where we're just talking through the same things seems like a waste of your time and ours. So let's dive deep. The first little pro tip for doing fun things with Objekt is using more than one exciter. Don't have to choose just one.
We'll back it out.
So in this patch, for example, it's a very nice patch, very mellow, because the frequency of the exciter here is very low. But you don't necessarily always play something with soft mallets and one at a time. You might actually have more things that hit. You might have two things doing a flam, or you change mallets. A really fun thing is use the exciter noise and turn down this envelope so it's really, really short. And maybe I'll use the colored noise here now. So now I have this soft exciter impact up here, and I'm adding this bright overtone. That's pretty nice because you get separation.
Yeah.
But there's a delay on this ADSR.
Right.
So it's not just an ADSR. So I can actually turn up the delay a bit.
Turn it to extreme so we really... Okay, right.
So now I can get this kind of two sticks coming after each other, or like there's some other little object sitting on top of this soft drum that's resonating. So I can get this, especially with a little decay.
Right.
And I really like using it for a very, very short, sharp thing that just comes slightly after.
Yeah, that's what's I think interesting to me is that because now it feels like it's part of the same hit.
Exactly.
But the thing that's hitting it is not just a round ball it's not just a mallet. It's not a drumstick it's got something that is making it weirder.
Yeah, exactly. It's really fun to use like two different exciters and kind of separate them. And another way to do that is to actually go into the mod matrix and control that part. So instead of just having a level and delay, let's turn down the delay and make this kind of more a static, big, noisy sound.
There's a question, Mattias, I should know the answer to, that you might know the answer to. When does the introduction offer end? Is that...
I'm pretty sure it's today.
I think it is today, right? Okay.
So watch this stream and then hurry.
Yeah, I think that is how it works. It's today, anti-pattern. So
another thing you can do with the exciter noise is to actually control this level from something that's not the envelope. So we'll get into the mod matrix a little bit. The mod matrix, you can already see we've put it at the bottom. It has a darker color and it's kind of hidden away because you really don't need to go there to make good sounds. But you can do a lot of fun things. So, for example, I can use the mod wheel here. I'll actually remove the other mod wheel thing.
Zoom in here.
Yeah.
So people can see this, okay?
So I can use the modulation wheel, and I can just drag this arrow and say, that's going to go to the
I've zoomed in too
level.
far. Wait, now I'm
No!
now people can't see what you're doing.
Go back,
okay.
go back.
Okay.
Okay, so I have the mod wheel set up as a source, meaning the mod wheel will control something.
Yes.
I'll drag this little arrow to the exciter noise level.
Okay.
And I'll turn this up a bit, meaning that the mod wheel now controls the level of the exciter noise. So now I can play something and use the mod wheel to bring in this noise that has some sustain. Wow. Which is actually quite a nice thing to add another exciter source without them kind of just triggering at the same time, but giving you control over it.
Yeah. If you change that to something other than color, like what if you go to...
Let's do a little bit of static then. You can kind of bring that in when you want.
And that's a really good example, again, of like, I'm hearing that, and like, if you just played me that sound, I would assume that is you've recorded something. But if you said, what is that? I'd be like, I don't know. Is it like...
Yeah.
Did someone like... it almost sounds like you're playing a steel drum, but somebody is kind of like taped...
Yeah, dropping some gravel on it.
Dropping some gravel. Yeah, that's a good example. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But you can take this even further. So here's a real pro tip in the mod matrix. There are a lot of fun sources and destinations here. And one that might be often missed because it's not super clear, but that could work excellently here, is something called last voice.
Okay.
So pop quiz, Ryan, you don't know about this stuff because you're not forced to, because you're doing the basic tutorial video at first. What do you think last voice is?
I'm going to assume it's the last key that would have been pressed on a series of keys pressed down.
Exactly. You can use this as scaling. So if I turn the amount to 100%, last voice, 100% scaling, now the mod wheel to noise level only affects the last note played.
Oh.
So I can play an entire chord and only bring up the noise for the last note. which is very, very fun. And you can
I
do
love that.
you can do very stupid things with this. So this is one of the more useful one. Let's do pitch wheel to pitch. And you go, that's already what it's doing. The pitch wheel is affecting the pitch.
Yeah.
That's true. But we can turn it off normally here. So set the range to 0 and the pitch wheel doesn't affect the pitch of everything.
Okay.
But it does affect the pitch on the last voice.
What? Mattias, you've just invented the B bender for. If guitarists out there know the B bender, it's the little contraption that will take a Telecaster and let you do like pedal steel bends on just the B string.
Exactly. So basically, you can play a guitar style patch. Actually, let's maybe pull up a guitar style patch because that is.
I got to think of what intervals
fun way to use
are the ones that work. I mean, like you could do. Wait, now how do you? The amount though, you'd have to figure out the musical amount, right? For a
exactly. You kind of have to listen for it. I think it's around 19 for 2 semitones or something. Last I tried.
Okay, so if you wanted to do like a suspension, like a third to a fourth,
you can basically try and see what works.
Okay.
But I'm gonna set this up again, so I'm just repeating what I did. Set pitch wheel to pitch, scaled by last voice, and turn off the pitch range. Now I have a guitar.
Yeah, that's wow.
And it's nice for vibrato too.
Huh.
So it's a very handy little trick that I think a lot of people probably didn't think about. But this is also why you read the manual, because it's in there.
So that means I shouldn't be reacting surprised. I should go, oh yes, oh, right, exactly.
Yeah, the manual.
Oh, of course. I remember that.
About that.
Page 28.
Yeah. So that's a very funny thing you can do with the mod matrix, and we'll get back to the mod matrix. I'm gonna try to keep it light for a little while.
There's a couple questions I'm gonna just throw at you while we're in a little pause here. One is how does this compare to friction, and maybe you could explain kind of the difference, because there are people out there who be like, wait, but you have a physical modeling synth. It's called friction. So.
Oh yeah, right. We can do that super quickly. So the basic thing is, first, friction does string sounds primarily. 85-90% of all the sounds are very string-like.
Yeah.
Objekt does not. You can see just in the categories that there are a lot more categories and things. Let's take a couple of examples. So we have a very convincing Rhodes patch.
Right.
But you also have stuff that's synth-like. And you also have, giant pads that have very little to do with real instruments. Except they have this character, right? You also have things that are definitely string-like, but are more plucked strings. Some of them can sound quite synthy. Yeah. And some of them can sound less synthy. Or like this one.
Yeah.
A lot of bells and mallets, a lot of wind stuff even. I think the clarinet is one of my favorites. It's just a lot of stuff, and a lot of percussion. I think is one of the. Let's take the infamous timpani patch.
The timpani, right? Right.
If we look at friction, all the parameters in friction. If you just take a short minute and read what it actually says, all of these are related to how you play a string instrument. There's bowing or plucking, pizzicato, collegno. There's the string, there's the articulation, vibrato, and there's a lot of key modes for actually playing convincing, string parts.
Right.
So this is what I talked about before. Like, this is a purpose-built physical modeling synthesizer that's made to do.
So we're still giving you a lot of control, but the control we're giving you are things within the string sound sculpting
Exactly.
universe.
They're almost like a lot of these are limited to where they still sound convincing or at least somewhat natural.
Right.
While
right.
Objekt can go extremely far.
Right.
It can,
right.
go
Because
beyond.
on Friction, if you were to try and make a drum, Colegno's not going to help you, and the position of your bow is not going to help you as a setting for your drum. Exactly. Another question I'm going to throw up here. Why isn't the matrix foldable to make objects smaller?
There's a very, very boring answer to that question that I'm ashamed over. It isn't because that's not yet a feature in the rack extension format. But as you can see, we've kind of prepped it.
Right. Okay. So this is where I was wondering if you were gonna go there. That it's like fold ready, I guess we could say.
Yeah, pretty much. Like as always, there's a million things we want to do, and just reading the comments, there's a million things everyone wants. So
right.
We have to choose what to do, and we might do that in the future. But yeah, that's the short answer.
Michael Gum says the upright bass is the one that made my jaw drop. But some of those are incredible too. Yes, upright bass really was pretty good, I gotta say.
It's a classic jaw dropper.
Yeah,
it's a really nice one.
Yeah. Did you use AI to create Objekt? It's the question, the 2023 question.
It's a very funny question because, like, overall, the answer is 100% no. But if you actually boil into details, I think technically Peter asked ChatGPT to see if they could just do an equation for him faster when he was tired. So technically, I think maybe there could be a tiny, tiny bit of that in it, but it's equivalent to Googling.
Yes, right. I gotcha.
But there's no like AI analysis of anything or any instrument. This is all handcrafted, if you will.
Right. Now, just a follow up here. Michael Felicis catches your language. He says, "You prepped the matrix. Folding is coming?"
I did not say it's coming. I said maybe we want it to come, and then we want to have this section.
Okay, well, I'm going to be the one that says that it's probably coming, but I mean, if you're saying that, then I'm going to say that on your behalf. But obviously, there's no, I don't know, who knows?
There's a very nice, let's say, confrontative question in the chat too that I think we're going to get into.
Confrontative?
Why are the Reason devices mod sections so poor? Is this an identical copy of Algorithm's terrible mod section?
Oh.
Which is, I think it's first a funny way to phrase a question.
Why are you so stupid and terrible, and why have you made this so bad?
We'll spend a lot of time in a little while to look at just how different this mod section is just in terms of sources and destination.
Sure.
That's where it differs. The layout is very similar, but what's actually in there is quite different.
Gotcha.
But I think we should look a little bit at external inputs, because I showed you the exciter impact and exciter noise and how you can use both of them. But there's a lot of fun things to do with Objekt with external input. And there's also a lot of important things to know about that. So I think we should cover the bases there. So I'm just going to take a reset patch here. I'm going to take some kind of preset sound. That sounds nice. Now, someone asked before, only some patches work when I put in an external input.
Oh, right.
And that's only half correct. So let's do this with a drum loop first, just because it's a very simple way to show it. But then I'm going to plug in some stuff. So I'll take this little house drum loop and hold shift when I drag it in.
I just got to give a quick shout out. Sean Murray just joined the chat. Sean, what's up?
Sean.
Thank you for joining the stream here. And if people don't know Sean Murray, then they must not be a Reason Plus subscriber, because
we're going to show a couple of Sean Murray's Objekt commentaries.
Oh, there you go. Sean Murray is easily my favorite sound designer of the last decade.
No playing favorites, Ryan.
What I meant was Sean is a very competent part of a team full of sound designers. I'm allowed to play favorites. Screw you. Sean's amazing.
Not so. I really want to show this external input stuff, but I'm also seeing stuff in the chat. How many presets did Mattias produce for the release?
I was going to ask you that later, but we can bring that one up then.
I think I can very quickly find out, because I put them all in a folder.
There you go. Yeah, Mattias, I mean, you guys, the whole development team was making patches. Like, while Objekt was kind of in beta testing, a lot of your design work and all that stuff was kind of done. So you had this time that you were just making patches and having fun, and it was fun to watch all these patches roll in with each subsequent beta build.
Yeah.
There was just all these new patches showing up.
And I think I made 47 if my count is correct.
47, okay.
47. Anyway, let's show external input. So I added this drum loop, just a house loop, and I held shift so it doesn't automatically route. And then I'll just plug the output of this into the external input of Objekt.
Right.
And here comes the first important thing. So someone said, why doesn't it make a sound? If I just run this drum loop, you're right, it doesn't. Because Objekt behaves differently if it's in a polyphonic mode or a monophonic mode. So if I actually play some notes, you can hear the drum loop coming in just fine. And the notes I'm playing are being, triggered by this little drum loop.
Right.
I'm gonna shorten it a little bit because a short exciter is often nice. However, if you're in mono or legato mode, there's only one voice to Objekt. So just to get technical for a second, a voice is every time you play a key, like on a monosynth, there's only one, especially if you're in hardware, right? If you play a monosynth, there's only one filter, one set of oscillators, one set of envelopes. So whenever you play a key, that one is sounding. If you play another key, that same voice is just changing pitch. In a polyphonic synth, every key, up to how many voices it has, is an identical copy of the synth, basically.
Okay.
So that's why the Prophet 5 back in the day was so amazing when it came out, because it was polyphonic but also quite cheap and you could control it. So you could play several notes. And back at that time, like the components used were quite expensive. So.
Yeah, right.
But for Objekt, what this means is if there's only one voice, then you don't actually need to re-trigger it. You don't need to say which pitch, which voice is used. And then it will just keep going. So if you want to use Objekt as an effect, always put it in mono mode.
Okay.
That's the best thing to do if you want to use it as an effect.
Right.
But you can still change the pitch, of course, but it's only one voice. So
I also find that when I'm playing around with external inputs, I put it in mono mode so that I can be playing with the external input part if I'm tapping or if I'm doing something, and
exactly.
then I don't have to be playing the keys at the same time.
Yeah. It's like a vocoder, right? A vocoder. It's basically, it needs to know which keys it's playing, and it also needs the audio input. In mono mode, it's kind of like a vocoder that's just playing one note all the time.
C or whatever it is, right?
And I can still change it, but you can hear it's only one at a time. There's nothing else.
Right. A request from Natural Sign, which we're going to get into, says, please show Objekt playing drum by touching the mic.
We will.
Yeah, we're going to get
into
it.
We'll show a lot of fun stuff here.
Yeah.
So that's the first important thing to know about the external input. The other thing is if you just want the external input, remember to turn down the level of the exciter impact and exciter noise, or otherwise they will also be triggered when you play. There's a couple of other cool things with external input. So first and foremost, you can use it for anything. So in this case, I'm using a drum loop, and that has its advantages. But I've actually done some preparation.
Oh, look at you moving over to the side.
I know, right? This is a cooking show now.
Now, actually, you know what? I want to, because I don't know if the examples we have get to literally the question from Natural Sign of by touching. I think he wants to see literally how we did the thing in the announcement video. So could you jump over for a second and we can just
I can just do that in this
in this basic one. Because what I did was it's snare drum. If you remove that, you have an external mic, right?
Yeah. I can just set this up quickly.
So let's go to your snare drum.
Drums.
I use drum 6 if it's any.
Okay, let's do it properly. So already, just to be sure, this drum loop would play the snare drum, right?
Right.
Actually, kind of nice, but not what we're trying to do here.
Yeah.
So then I just need the audio input of my mic, which I happen to have right here. Woo.
Yeah, look at you.
I'm gonna put that into the screen a little bit so you see what's going on.
Perfect.
And now there will be a little bit of you hearing me twice because it's 2 mics, but we'll live with it. I'm gonna create an audio track. And here I'm gonna make sure it's the mic input, and it is. And then I'm going to connect the direct output of this to the external input. And it's mono, so just do this. And I'm going to talk over here. Move the mic away. But now basically the mic is set up to play the drum.
There you go.
And, you know, the more different things you try, the more fun it is. That was fingers. Let's try a pen. Or a guitar pick, why not?
We hear your, I mean, there's nothing we can do about it. We hear your...
Oh, yeah, you hear my
we're
actual
hearing
microphone
the actual
too.
room mic as well, but...
Yeah, I can turn up the snare drum a little bit.
Blowing on the snares of a drum. Yeah.
Yep. So there's a bunch of really fun ways to play the instruments. And I think if you have a mic, take some time to walk around with that mic with an object patch.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just try stuff.
A question from Raging Oracle. What does when it says edge D sharp, what does that mean in these snare drum patches?
Now we're running ahead, but I'll show that really quick. So
okay.
That's a mod matrix thing.
You don't have to explain the programming of it. You can just show the actual music result.
So if I play any note, it's the snare drum. If I play D sharp. Oh, sorry, D sharp.
Oh, okay. So it's literally
plays the
like,
edge of the snare drum.
Yeah, like more of a rim shotty kind of. Yeah, okay. Gotcha.
So
there you go.
Let's go back to the other example.
If you're using Objekt in a Dave Matthews cover band,
yeah.
you want the D sharp.
That's the one.
Okay.
So I spent some time, and I'm going to do this live for you in a second, but I spent some time before just having fun with guitar patches. So I played my guitar and recorded something that sounded... It was basically muting the strings and going with the pick. And it sounds like this. Beautiful, right? Hard to make something.
Play it again.
More.
I want to hear that again. That's just that. Yeah, there's no tonal information. Just okay.
Perfect. Perfection.
Perfection.
And then I routed that into the guitar patch here. I set this up as a parallel track. You don't have to do it. But I routed it into a guitar patch, basically going, here you go, external input. And then I played my keyboard in time to this rhythm. And the result is that, you know, I played a couple of notes when it was that frut. I went brr.
Oh,
and
okay.
it actually sounds quite nice.
Yeah, the strumming there is.
Yeah. And of course, if I'm not happy with my strumming, I can just take up my guitar again that I happen to have here.
Uh-huh.
And I can, you know, keep trying various... So I'm going to play this now, and you might see it on screen and you might not.
If we don't see it, we'll just trust that you have a guitar in your hands.
I can really just keep coming up with various ideas. It's quite hard to play with four hands, but you can start with a rhythm you like. And
but if and out of curiosity, you've written the keyboard part is actually doing little glissandos, but would it need to, or does it not? Could you
let's
like if you used chord
sequencer,
for example, which is just going to play a bang on chord, does that work?
Oh, of course. Let's do the default major essentials.
Sure.
Might need a click. So, yes.
Wow.
It totally does work. But it really gets more realistic if you time your playing. So if I just...
Sure, but that is really, I mean, It's such a
I can record a
simple
little
way
bit,
to-
and I can show how I'm kind of adapting my playing to how the exciter signal is. So let's just record a little bit of this to a click. Sorry for the click. You all know it. You all hate it, but here it is. Oops,
Okay.
I'm not recording on the audio track. That was my bad. One
That's
more time.
right.
There's my beautiful
That's
guitar
a
performance.
very beautiful.
I know, right? It's
I
one
love it.
of the best I've ever done. I'm gonna unmute this for now, so I hear it. But I could also turn it up in the exciter here. But
Yep.
I'm gonna unmute it so I can play to it, and then I'll just, see. Maybe something like that. I'll turn it down in the mix and
Yeah,
record
okay.
something.
Oh,
then
but
I'll
you're
just-
wanting to hear it so that you can time it. Is that the idea?
Exactly. I just wanted to remember my timing. It's like
Yeah.
So let's see. That was horrible. One more time. Better.
Right.
So now I have this take that's kind of similar to how I played, where I get this vroom. And then changing to single notes when I'm playing this little smart.
Right. Now, I
So
guess
that's a way
also
to really
just
get your own.
as a guitarist, being a persnickety guitarist, if you wanted to add even another level of realism to this, if you voice things, because guitar chords tend to voice wider than the
Yeah,
way you play
exactly.
things on
You would
piano.
play with much more distance between your hands. I have a
Right,
very
right.
small keyboard here. so-
Right. But normally, yeah, lots of fourth and fifth intervals and
Yeah.
stuff.
And that's an example with guitar, but there's tons of examples you can do. Someone asked if it's good for vocals, and you should check out Beardy Man's latest video where he's in
Right.
rehearsal.
Yeah, ever
he's
tried it
just
as a usable vocal effect?
Going
Paul?
nuts with the beatboxing and using Objekt as a resonator.
Yeah, Beardy Man, when
It's
he
really
got
fun.
he got a copy of to start playing with a little bit ahead of release, and I remember the stuff he started coming back with was like stuff that we just had never considered. It was like
Yeah.
this is not what we built Object for, but it's so cool what he's doing with it.
Yeah. So I'm gonna show another trick, and I'm gonna use the external input to do this with the guitar because it's actually quite a good example of it. I'm just gonna change this to my guitar input. Boop. Make sure we're kind of in tune. I did tune beforehand, but what are you gonna do? Now you can all see I'm also a drop D kind of guy. I'm also just gonna add a little amp. So that's my guitar sound. One of the things that people might not know about Objekt is what are these things in the middle, the on and kubd. You can figure out the kubd. So kubd is clearly keyboard. And what that means in practice. So let's plug this in. I'm going to put this in mono. I'm going to take the direct, actually not the direct out. Let's do the parallel out so I can hear
Now, why
both.
are you doing the parallel out?
So I want to hear my guitar through the amp.
Yep.
And then I want to put that guitar into Objekt, and I want separate volume levels of
Okay.
those rather than fiddling around with the mixer here.
I see.
You can hear it's already ringing when I'm playing.
Right, what we have, that's coming from Object?
That's the
Okay.
note. So I'm gonna tune this down a little bit. Yeah, let's keep it a D. By not actually playing Objekt, these all stay the same pitch. And that's the same as turning off keyboard. So that's pitch tracking, keyboard tracking. So if that's off, it doesn't follow any pitches you play, which is nice if you want to kind of trigger the exciter, but you don't want the pitch to change. So all percussion sounds, for example, are made like that.
With keyboard tracking off, yeah.
Yeah. And the fun thing is when you do this, you're basically creating, you know, sympathetic strings. Let's do without coupling.
So, it's just a bit of a language lesson here from DJ Afro.
Yeah.
KBD in Arabic means liver. So yeah.
So use the liver thing.
Turn off liver tracking.
Yeah. But now we basically, if you've ever wondered what a guitar is, or even a keyed fiddle or stuff like that, they tend to have strings you play, where you choose the pitches, but they also have strings that are just sitting there, and they're tuned to intervals. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm basically saying, let's tune these so they sound pleasing. It's good to know that 1.5 is a half step up here in the harmonic series. So I get the fifth. If I just... You can hear I have this... Just a power.
So it's funny. I have to keep reminding myself that the thing we're hearing that's object. That's not your guitar ringing.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm muting my guitar.
Oh, I see. Yes. Okay.
Playing it. Right? I can set the decay to somewhere I like. But now, if I start playing my guitar like a melody instrument, these strings will just ring at this tone D.
Just that D.
This can get quite loud, so you can
Wow.
always check your external input gain. But I basically built my own little sitar. And I can do a lot of stuff to the resonator to make this more interesting. So, okay, let's make it wide.
A question from Paolo. Where are these patches that Mattias and Ryan are using? Not part of the standard stock. We're making these live here. So
this is just initialized here.
building them up in the stream. Yeah, this is initialized. So if you watch the stream back, you'll watch the patch get made live. You can follow along.
Yep. So some cool stuff you can do here, except just choosing your notes, is you can make it really wide with this width control that basically pans out the frequencies.
Ooh.
So the guitar is in the middle, but the resonant strings are kind of all over the place. And if you add a little bit of modulation, especially pitch mod, which kind of feeds this back into itself, it gets this twangy kind of sound that's almost sitar-like. A little bit of dispersion.
Raging Oracle correctly names this. This is what's called a pedal tone. And let me tell you, as a lover of bagpipes and banjo, I am all about pedal tones. So
yeah, what you don't know about me is that I spent time at university studying folk music, specifically pedal tone stuff.
there you go. Yeah.
It's really fun to have this kind of wonky, interesting kind of pedal tone that really does stuff. That it's not just a string. It kind of goes wow. You get these sounds because it has synthesizer parameters.
Right.
I add a little bit of low cut here, and I can add collision. I can add whatever. But a really important thing, and this is how you kind of learn what the resonators are actually doing. So the exciter impact section we talked about before, over here, that's a short burst that has a lot of frequencies. Basically almost white noise. And why does it have a lot of frequencies? Because a lot of frequencies hitting a resonator means that every frequency in the resonator is kind of likely to ring on.
Okay.
If it was just, a sine wave coming in, that's a single frequency, and in the resonator, it doesn't have any frequencies there. It kind of doesn't really care. It doesn't do much.
Right.
And you can really hear this when playing guitar. Because if I play the same note as this is pitched, so a D, it really reacts. But if I play a different note, it's just whatever the overtones are that they share, sure, they ring. See, there you get
right.
that
little ghosting. Yep.
Which is one of the notes they share. It's another note they share. But then when I go back...
I'm with Audio Muscle. Mind blown. I had no idea Objekt could do this. Yeah.
It's really cool. And this, you can almost hear what's happening because, Objekt, they're based on delays that are feeding back. And it really does sound like feedback.
Yeah.
It picks up one of the overtones. and makes that really pronounced.
But it's almost got a neat kind of like feedback but synthy quality to it. Like I don't know.
And I mean, depending on the settings, if I really increase the decay to max and do weird stuff, it can scream like nobody's business. Right. But it's a nice way to understand just how the frequencies interact. And you, Ryan, you did an example I had never thought of doing.
Oh, yeah.
Speaking of feedback.
So let me...
show that, because that's something.
Let me see if I can hang on a second. I got to set up so I can actually show my screen. Is this my screen? Well, that's a picture of you. Hang on a second. I think that's my screen.
Yeah, it sounds like your... No, is it?
No, that's your screen. Wait.
Yeah, that's my screen.
That's your screen.
That's me.
Okay, wait, hang on. Okay, I'm going to go back to here.
You can do it without screen,
I'll do it without the screen.
The sound is what you want.
So here's what I did. And there's really nothing to it. It's Gerudo Santor, the patch. And
I also made that one.
Yeah, there you go. And all I did is I just plugged in the external input to my microphone, and then I actually used my monitor speakers. So I actually turn up my monitor speakers so that my microphone feeds back into Gerudo Santor. And when I do that, I actually get a really convincing, like, kind of feedback sound it's the most convincing feedback I've actually heard. So I can't talk while I do this and then it'll all be part of the same feedback. But I'm just going to turn up my monitors and I'm going to tap the mic to excite it and then get it feedbacking. So here we go. Wait. I jumped to the feedback part without actually turning on the signal here. Okay, there we go. Okay, here it comes. So I'm going to get exciting. I mean, like all those just little drones. Like I would just record.
I love that so much.
I would just record, like a few minutes of that, and you take cool parts of it, and you can build these little sort of feedback things. Plus, your neighbors love you when you do it.
Your neighbors love it.
But yeah, that literally is just a microphone going into Gerudo Santor, and then you set it to mono as your key mode, and then turn up your speakers and let the feedback rip.
Yeah, so there's one more thing I want to show with the external input that also leads us back to the mod matrix. Oh, how you've waited for this. So I'm going to set up a basic patch again. So I've initialized this object and I'll do skins 1 because I like it. When you put in a signal into object, so let's do a drum loop again because it's a very easy way to show it. I'll just grab this one and do the same thing I did before. Hold shift when I drag it in so it doesn't auto route and route it to external in. Note here that this is a stereo signal, left and right. And even if I play it, that doesn't mean much.
Right.
Cool sound.
I'm sorry, I have to throw. This is one of the truest comments I've ever read. The Ramrouter says, "When I use Reason, so do my neighbors."
Yep.
That's so good.
So this patch is just skins 1, nothing else. I've turned off the exciter impact and only using external in. The good thing with Dr. Octorex is that you can easily pan stuff to show this off. So I'm going to go into slice edit mode and go to pan and actually do some, pretty heavy-handed panning here. Mm-hmm. So now this is panned. And if you look at this little external in meter right here. You see it's moving around. It's showing
moving left and right. Yeah.
We're showing when we're left and when we're right. This is actually a modulation source. So I can, in the source selection, choose external trig position. Same as it says here. External trig pos. And send that somewhere. And the signal is basically, how far left and how far right you are. So let's do this to the damping, because why not? And set the hefty amount until we hear something. You can hear this will open up the high end or close the high end, depending on if it's left or right.
Wow. And makes the drum loop so industrial. Like
I know, right? But that's a really funny thing to do, because you can also set it up with having 2 microphones, and you're tapping on the different microphones.
Yeah.
You put them on the table, or you can, do all kinds of tricky things with this external trig position, which I think are really, really fun to explore.
Those are the ones where I just kind of go like, I can't wait to see what people do with them, because they're going to come up with stuff that we hadn't thought of. One of those, there's a video out there. I think it's out in the wild, or maybe we've seen it.
Yeah, it is.
It is, right? And it's this guy, and he thought to take like a paintbrush basically on his microphone, and he's brushing his microphone, and it's making the coolest sound. And it's like I was doing the tapping on my mic, but I hadn't thought of the sort of softer type of ways of exciting. And so that external thing is, I just can't wait to hear what other people do with it.
Okay, I'm looking at the time now to see what else I have in my notes, but there are a couple of cool things that I wanna show.
Joey Luck, by the way, just says, I like to target pitch. I think that's just a good tip for people. Something that Mattias and I were using this morning as we were kind of like getting set up and talking about some of these techniques. Pitch is a really good way to test, is the thing I want to control as a source, is it working? Like if you're unsure, sometimes some of the settings that you start modulating are a little more subtle. So if you set it to pitch, it's very obvious, like it's definitely doing something.
Exactly. So I'm just going to show another patch before we dive back into the mod matrix, and this is to show that when I've been showing stuff, I've been mostly looking at one resonator at a time, which is honestly what I recommend everyone to start with, because you can get amazing results with that without getting in too much over your head. But there's a reason we have 3 resonators, 1 modal and 2 of these objects. So I'm going to set up a basic, a nice little clingy sound.
Yep.
That's nice. Kind of a little bit off. Gonna make it a bit shorter. Now I'm using this exciter impact that we all know and love. But you can see here, there's an input mix.
Yeah.
So of course you can take, 2 objects and just put, there's gonna be a bell in object 2 and it's gonna be quieter. And now you have, something else. But that's not what I'm going to do. I'm going to use the first exciter here to basically be my exciter, or filter my exciter. So I have this little sound. I can just take a preset instead, I guess. Doesn't really matter. Let's do glass.
Okay.
And it's just getting this exciter impact. However, if I turn on modal, I can start shaping this pretty much like filters, because they are filters. I'm basically choosing frequencies here.
Okay.
And I can make it really short and kind of make it, a couple of these really bright clicky ones. And this low one should ring out a little bit more. I can use this as my exciter for object 1 to get a much different tonality than I would if I just used the exciter impact. So to do this, I simply turn them both on. And I can turn down modal in the mixer if I want, but it has to be turned on. And then I just take up the input mix to, instead of having the exciter blend in the modal signal, you can hear it really changes the character.
Yeah. Much rounder. Much more round.
Experimenting here. And get, much different things. And I can even take one of these, like wood 1, and make that short.
Yeah.
So the difference of this kind of pure sound and this, much more kind of, I hear those frequencies.
It's like just got a complexity to it, which it gets into that sort of real world thing again. Of like,
it's like how those frequencies really interact. So here, if I have this bell sound, it's very clear that because the bells kind of, there are some frequencies.
Body, thank you, Kevin. Yes, way more body. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah, here it's kind of clean.
Yeah.
Can get quite loud even. So that's actually a way a lot of the patches have made. If you're seeing a lot of these, several objects kind of on, sometimes the first one is actually just shaping the exciter to sound closer to something real. Second one is the actual string or skin.
Yeah.
And the third one could be something else. So let me show you that. If I take just one of these, let's do Objekt 2. This is a delay, but it's very fast. But of course, I can make it very slow. I can make it even slower. And now this isn't really a tone anymore. It's more of a delay. I can make these complex. And suddenly it becomes reverb-like. So what if I turn on Objekt 1, create a little patch, maybe do a little... Let's do skins again. And I turn on Objekt 2, and I send Objekt 1 into Objekt 2. And I turn that up. Now I made a little reverb.
You made a reverb, which Chris Mitchell says, he was commenting to someone else, Moth Super, when I was your age, I had to kick a spring reverb if I wanted physical modeling. So, here you go. Talk about reverb, spring reverb. This is, you're making a reverb using...
Yeah, basically using all these delays that interact. Like a lot of algorithmic reverbs are a lot of delays that interact. And all of these parameters really change what's going on. Anything could happen. There's a couple of examples of this. So the snap finger patch. This is the sound of the modal.
Okay.
It's not much for the world. But Objekt 1 here is the reverb.
Wow. And now I instantly want to, as a guitarist, I instantly want to use this as an external effect. Is that possible?
Yeah, of course. You simply, you turn off the modal and you plug something into external input.
And then it just becomes an audio effect.
Yeah, because that's the exciter, right? That's the thing that's going into Objekt 1 then.
Of course, all right.
Turn it back to exciter. It's the same in this patch thin organ. That's a nice organ sound with a Leslie that you can control down here in the macro controls. But the Leslie is Objekt 1. Just set to frequencies that sound slightly similar to a Leslie.
Weird.
And then the LFO is moving those up and down. So you can, like, if you go deep, you can go very, 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 very deep.
That's wild.
It's really, really fun. I personally more enjoy maybe not doing a reverb, but rather just doing, have this organ and using this as sympathetic strings that ring out instead. Stuff like that. Oh, that was bad. Because I think it's really fun to have that kind of ringing effect I showed with the guitar. And this is when keyboard tracking is really useful. You don't want the reverb or the sympathetic strings to move when you're playing different notes. So turn off keyboard tracking on them.
Wow.
And you hear it's the same notes coming out all the time.
I got very Emerson, Lake and Palmer very quick.
I wish I could play like Tarkus and stuff. I would do it in a heartbeat. So someone also asked about percussion patches before and why they were playing with audio input and how they're made. And someone asked about the snare drum with the D sharp. And that's a good reason to go back to the mod matrix and take a look at why the percussion patches work the way they work.
Right. Yes. It's a thing we didn't mention back then. Yeah.
So I've loaded up an Udo patch here. And this one, if I'm playing, let's see if I can actually hold up the keyboard so you can see. I think so. Ooh.
Here, I'm going to switch to full screen Mattias so you can.
I also pulled out my power. Seems bad. Here we go. So if I play black keys, I get these short notes. If I play white keys, I get longer notes. They're changing slightly. And if I play the key of C, I get this whoop sound.
Yeah, the what?
Typical of an Udo. So that's actually all set up in the mod matrix. And I can show you the power of those sources. And that's part of what differs the object mod matrix from many others we have. So
this goes back to the question of why is your stupid mod matrix so stupid and like your other terrible mod matrices?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So the basic thing is, so key in octave is a source, and key in octave is every key from C to the next C gets a value. So it repeats. So if I play a D, that's the same value regardless of my octave. And those are sent to change the frequency of stuff. So the higher up I play in an octave, it gets brighter or less bright.
Yep. But it's still always going to be that sound, that tone.
And then there's a source called black key. It is what it sounds. The black keys send a signal when you play them. And in this case, those pull down the high damping and the gain of the modal, meaning they get shorter and less tonal.
Okay. Yeah.
And then finally, how do we get the
Yeah.
Here it's a bit more complex. Let's see if you're looking at what I'm looking. Yes, you are. The envelope, that's the ADSR, is sent to the pitch of the modal part. Negatively. So it just says, whoa, like that's a decay attack, and it goes down because it's negative, and pitch goes down. But then you scale it with the key of C, because that's also a source, a single key. And all of the keys are here. So anytime I play a C, this envelope is triggered. And if I don't, it's not. And then you also have some fun stuff here too.
Single targeted key modulation.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's really good if you want one note to do something different. You can scale it with the key of C, or even just send the key of C to a source. So that's a really handy trick to make playable stuff. And if we go into a lot of the percussion patches.
Yeah, right.
That's what they're doing most of the time, right? You're getting some variation from which pitch it is, and the black keys change the sound to something else, which I think is really fun.
That's the congas and the bongos, all those do that
exactly.
stuff.
And there's one more, I think, that I should show. Oops, I'm saving now. I don't want to save. If we go back to the glorious timpani patch, you might remember. Timpani patch is using a key mode that's down here by the mod matrix. And this key mode is auto legato. Legato, you probably all know. If I play notes without lifting my finger in between, they don't re-trigger a voice. Auto legato is the same, but it recognizes when you play two or more keys. So this timpani patch, I can play one key at a time. I can play two keys at a time. To get two hits.
Sure.
But as soon as I start playing legato, it changes the pitch. And for anyone who knows about timpanis for realsies, you know that in an orchestra, you can't fit infinite timpanis, one for every pitch. Timpanis actually have pedals.
Right.
So you can tune the timpani with the pedals on the fly. And that's almost impossible to sample. But here, there's just a playing mode that goes.
Yeah.
It actually does this.
And it's very, and this is I want to sort of tout Objekt here a little bit as as compared to samples, that if you do a pitch bend on a timpani sample, you're shifting the whole everything of the sample. And that's different than shifting the resonating skin of the drum, which is what's really happening when you're pressing that pedal on a timpani. And so by doing it on a physical modeling synth, you're actually getting this more realistic bend that sounds more the way it would sound in real life.
And just to show a little bit more of crazy mod matrix shenanigans, this I can hardly explain, to be perfectly honest, but Peter did a patch Timpani 2 when I was being annoying, as I often am. Started sending pictures of percussion or videos of percussion ensembles that I really like. All this, it's like super arty music. There was a lot of playing and then rubbing the rubber stick on the skin and doing stuff like that. Yeah, and he said, "Well, you can do that." So then he made Timpani 2, where the mod wheel is controlling the input, so you can play. But then when you pull up the mod wheel, it's basically like dragging your stick across the skin, which is a crazy thing.
You know, this stuff makes me want to like make film soundtracks for films I'm not working on. just like pull up, I don't know, like Apocalypse Now. Be like, I'm going to rescore this just using Objekt, because there's so many cool. There's like that instantly evokes a mood and something that's really inspiring to me. You know.
Yeah. So let's do a little bit more mod matrix stuff. I'm gonna pull up a patch I like and show you some tricks you can do. So this patch is pretty straightforward. I'm playing it and the impact happens, and that's about it.
Okay.
There is a very fun mod destination that you might not think about, and that is Exciter Impact Trigger. And you go, what do you mean impact trigger?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
So this is just when a signal comes into impact trigger and is high enough, it's gonna play the impact, like me playing a note. And I can route stuff here. So let's do a square wave LFO and just go, okay, LFO 1 to impact trigger.
Okay.
Now this LFO is triggering the impact.
Yeah.
And this way you can do really funny things. For example, use this curve. So we have two LFOs and we have one curve. And the curve can be stepped or not. But a stepped curve is quite funny because you can basically make, patterns. It's like a matrix step sequencer.
Right.
So if I change this to curve, and I make sure that this curve is one shot, and it syncs to when I hit my key.
Okay.
So when I hit my key, it's going to play through the curve.
Right.
And trigger the impact. If I make that really fast, I can start making these kind of new ways of playing. It even has like velocity.
Wow.
And you can also just turn this on and make it loop and do all kinds of things. And this is a very, very, very funny thing. That's if it's looping. Imagine
you're slowly reinventing the telephone ring.
Yeah, I know, right? Imagine that then on a snare drum. So then you can take a snare drum and you can do the same thing. I'm going to have the curve, trigger the impact, and I'm going to make a little snare roll.
Okay.
That gets, that's a little bit quiet. Let's do this. There's a fine little curve.
Okay.
And that's going to be key sync. Now I made a snare roll when I hit a key.
Huh.
And you can of course make that however you want. You can make it really fast or slow, and you can make it like a proper. It's a really funny way to actually make like little patterns and stuff with objects that are tempo synced and place it differently, which is it's a really fun thing to try.
There's some discussion in the comments. People asking. I guess this is in some ways this is a good thing. People are getting excited about the number of modulation options in the mod matrix, they're discussing that there's 8 rows of modulation, and I guess wanting scrollable infinite mod matrix
infinite,
rows,
of course.
Yeah.
Well, it's always a choice with every feature. It's like how many do we add? When do we stop? When does it make it? When is more possibilities better?
Right.
And one of the things with Objekt is that just as a synth without a mod matrix, it can be quite complex and do incredible sounds. And since it's based on feedback, it can also, like, if you really go to extreme values or move really fastly, it can actually sound quite bad. So to be perfectly honest, we kept it where it was small, so you could focus on the main interface.
Yep.
And where you had enough slots to do pretty much everything that was sane.
Gotcha.
And anything more than that, then it could very easily just go overboard, and you end up with these crazy patches that you're then kind of sad that you made. But who knows? Maybe we'll add more slots in the future.
I gotta pass this one along to you, Mattias, because this will be a very meaningful compliment to you as a Swede. Chris Mitchell says, Objekt is Sweden's finest export since flat pack furniture. So there you go. IKEA, Objekt that comes right next. And you don't have a little hex tool that you have to like store in a drawer forever. So
let's see if there's other things I picked up. Well, I want to also, we're doing a lot of just going deep here now, but the point of going deep is actually making nice sounds. So I want to show, I played a bunch of patches, but the patches we've made are generally patches for objects. So when we release an instrument, we tend to build in patches that are like, here's the instrument, this is what it can do on its own. But Reason is Reason, and you can make combinators. And you can put Objekt together with a bunch of different things. You can, layer some nice plucked string sound with an electric piano and put that in a combinator and so on and so on.
Let me take a moment actually to answer a question that was asked. It's an unrelated and yet related question. So I'm going to throw it up on screen. Gene Stallnaker says, so I want to ask, what is the big difference between Reason Plus and the regular Reason? Do you get more plugins with Reason Plus? The answer is... sort of to that. You get, with Reason Plus, you get all of our devices that we've made as add-on rack extensions and what comes basically in Reason. But the other thing you get when you ask the question, what's the big difference between the two, you get the Reason Plus companion and sound packs that come out regularly every week on a regular schedule. And the reason I mention that here is because there's a lot of Objekt combinators that sound designers have been making, and they're getting released as Reason Plus sound packs. So if you're a Reason Plus subscriber and you just can't get enough Objekt, well, good, because there's more Objekt coming, more objects.
Exactly.
Combinator sound packs, which is exactly
and
what you're getting
that's
into.
just what I wanted to show. So,
great.
Objekt is fun for sound designers for sure, but to be blunt, like when you make music, it's really fun to do synth diving, but at the end of the day, you tend to also add effects and produce it and EQ it and kind of make it into a full sound. And part of the beauty of the combinator is doing that. So with the sound packs, there are always combinators, and we've gotten some really nice one that are, for in the companion right now. If you have Reason Plus, I'm just gonna play you a couple of those patches because I think they're so nice. So here's an example of something that Objekt couldn't do on its own. Right, this is a combinator by Sean Murray, I think, from the percussive pop pack, where it's basically a gated arpeggiator with a lot of chords and objects built in.
Yeah.
There's
Nice.
also a lot of just really nice, it's not too distorted at first, some nice...
Yeah, so stuff like this, I know this is called percussive pop. Like, this is the kind of thing, to go back to one of the things you said very early on, when you were listening to music and listening to what's happening, what's trending in music production right now, this is a really good example of that, of it's like has a synthy quality to it, but an organic quality to it. It really kind of
and also it
straddles
has
the line.
a metric ton of reverb, which is very much trending in music
Right,
now.
right. So
But it's a very nice way
this.
where it's it has controls up here for all the important things. So the patch is like quite complex if you look at it, and it uses all kinds of rack extensions because in Reason Plus you have access to all of this. But the sound designer, being a very smart and talented person, has said, well, in this sound, the things you really want to control is like how much chorus do you want? How much of this harmonizer and shimmer do you want?
Right.
How much of this noise do you want? And how much of the individual parts of the object patch?
Right.
So it's like a little mini synthesizer, basically.
Right, without having to dig in and without having to understand how the patch is made, you can shape the sound.
Yeah. And then if you want to understand how the patches are made, you can always just open up and go, aha. And then like if you like this one, but you mostly like the gated hall, Sean's Big Hall, or something else, you can just go, okay, what if I replace this? That's kind of why we do combinators, because we don't want to lock you into like, this is how the patch should sound. You can actually just replace things and kind of make them your own. And there's also a lot of more kind of, let's call them more explorative things. So this is...
Can you go back? Michael Felicia says, I can't hear a difference. Like, can we go back to and do this slower so that
sure.
So that we really
just
do
what the controls do?
Yeah, because I guess we were flying through them, and maybe and some of them have bigger impact than others.
Of course,
the chorus may have less impact than mixing the object 1 and object 2.
So Harmony Plux here, there's a lot of controls. Well, not a lot compared to what's in there, but there's a couple of controls. So you can hear it's a kind of a complex sound. It's kind of wide, and it has this shimmer that's tuned a fifth above.
Yeah.
Yep. So these controls take that down.
Right. So now, just right now, it's the same. I mean, it's the same sound.
Pretty much the same sound,
but it's
the
more
shimmer
pure. It's like got less harmonic.
And the same. If I remove these, like the modal object 1 and object 2, the parts of the sound, that's very, very clear. There, the stringy sound is gone, and here, the belly sound is gone.
Instant
and
postal
now,
service.
All sounds are gone.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Okay. I just wanted to make sure, for Michael's sake, that we were,
Absolutely. And there's also like a lot of sound packs, since they're kind of coming out all the time and they're coming after we've released something, people, learn the things and learn new things. So this one is by Naviretlav, I think, Modal Pads Expression. And this is kind of... making really much beautiful. More, sounds utilizing the modal, just the modal synth part, not even utilizing the objects, because that's something we didn't really do. We wanted to just make a bunch of cool sounds, and we started going into it, right? But once you're a proper sound designer, go, okay, this is what you did. What haven't you done?
Right.
And they can make this really kind of interesting, impressive sounds, especially by utilizing all of the effects and other modulation and stuff we have in Reason.
Right.
So it's really fun in sound packs that way, because even we get to see, after the fact, what's gonna happen when an object gets put in a combinator, right? So it's been really fun to see this, and I really recommend you check them out in the companion. I think there are 4 dedicated object packs right now.
Cool, and more on the way, obviously, I'm sure.
Clearly.
We'll have to assume it's not...
Yeah, we release 2 to 3 packs per week, each with 10-ish patches. So there's a lot of patches that that really kind of, show up.
A couple of questions here I'm just going to throw at you.
Yep.
I think maybe that was an answer to someone else's question.
That sounds like an answer to me.
Okay. Can this do vocals? Asks Sway.
And the previous one was the answer to this. So yes, if you by do vocals mean can I process my vocals with this? Can I sing into this? Can I use the whole resonator thing with this? Yes.
No, but he means he says I meant synthetically.
Can it sound like vocals? And I think short answer, nah, not really. Long answer, probably some choir-like things if you get the frequencies right. But it's going to be very hard to make it do words or anything like that. It really is. It's quite different, actually.
Right. And this is where the people are going to try and be, I can do it with Thor, because, you know, what's that,
I am Thor.
I am Thor, right. Uses, I think, the format filter or something to make that work.
All of these questions are just challenges for Peter, too, so who knows?
Yeah, exactly. There's a few other questions I've flagged. I don't want to interrupt your flow.
Yeah, no, I think we're actually getting to the kind of the end of the pro tips, as it were.
Okay.
So I think do a couple of questions, and then I want to end with just a music making tip that I think Objekt is
love it. Okay.
good at.
Well, okay, so let's. There's a couple of things I just flagged them, and I'm going to throw them up. Some are usage questions. Some this one is even just a design question, but a couple of people asked it, so I'm going to throw it up there. I don't know if you have an answer for it, but they say, why are the rack rails missing behind it? I get there being no screws, but how to explain the black void where the rails should be? I like questions like this because what it really shows
Someone really cares.
Someone really cares and really and I have the same almost personal attachment to these as if they were real world objects. And it's like, but it's in my rack and I want to, where's my rack rails?
Yeah.
So
the fun answer is that Objekt is such a complex instrument that it's so deep that it's just void behind it. It's actually very much in front.
Right.
That's a fun answer.
So it's not flush with your rack. It's actually standing out.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like it's here and the rest of the rack is over there. The more serious answer is that we thought this looked better, and you know, showing rack rails behind can be a little bit tricky because you need them to align in every kind of graphical resolution. There can be ugly little lines and stuff. So
I see.
This was a good in between, and we thought it also made you focus.
This is like in video games. In the early video games, they used to put fog on the horizon, so they
yes, exactly. It's the fog of war.
So let's see a couple other things. This is I think just a comment. It said I tried putting my voice through BBX, then into Objekt external in, and it sounded amazing. You guys should try this. It's incredible for backing vocals and weird effects. That's great.
Yeah.
I love that. You know, taking two sort of vocody type of effects and serializing them, I think is a really great.
I think Objekt. The fun thing with Objekt is like, I am certain we haven't scratched the surface of how it can sound,
right?
Just by virtue of the external input and the amount of controls,
and
the kind of unpredictability of physical modeling. So I can't wait to just hear people try weird stuff.
Right. And speaking of weird stuff, the intentionalist says, just got Objekt and made the Wookiee sound. I'm dead. I would love to hear the Wookiee sound. Pale Male says, I'm mad that I'm going to buy this. Damn you. I think we've all been there with certain things in the past where we've been like, damn you. Actually, that was when I got the guitar, my acoustic guitar, that was my feeling. I was like, damn it. They made it too good. Now I have to get this. Oh, wait a second. Oh, okay. I'm going to throw this up because I'm reading it.
I've seen it already.
Yeah. Is that because coding alpha maps is hard? No. But
no.
It's more complicated than that, I guess. And I'm not part of the development, so I don't really know.
It was also just, you know, the design, like the visual design comes relatively late in an instrument's process too. And we did like how it looked when it was just kind of suspended and you could really see the shape of it in this way.
Right. People want to hear you guys sing live. I've done that on a live stream, Ramrodder. I have a whole live stream episode from the Reason Livestream archives called How to Sing Harmony, which if you want to learn how to sing and write harmonies, you'll hear me sing a lot because that is a whole bunch of singing. And actually, one of the other guys I saw in this chat, Michael Wood, we use one of his songs on that stream as well to write some harmonies live. So check that one out if you really do want to hear us sing live, because that's happening. Let's see what else is going on here. This looks like one we had missed, so he says, I'll repeat myself. Can you tell me something about pitch, tuning, and analysis? I don't know.
I think I've seen a couple of questions that are basically a feature request for something that Objekt really doesn't do today. It's like, can I throw in a sample, have magical analysis of kind of which frequencies make up this sound, and set Objekt to
Okay,
those
it's that same
frequencies.
idea of the external sample
I
loading.
think so. Yeah, exactly.
To sort of
And
figure out.
that's cool feedback, but it's not what Objekt is right now, at the very least.
I see. Mine Vegas producer Ryan, I got something to show if this is possible. An Objekt session. I don't know how it would be possible. Not this late in the stream. I could have set up a Dropbox, but
post a link to a video or a document.
yeah, if you that'd be great.
Out.
If you could demonstrate, post it, put it on your Instagram, and we can like regram it or something like that. Or you can also send me. I know Philip is connected with me on Instagram now, so you can send me a download link and I can look at it and stuff. But I don't think I have the means to throw it up live on the stream here. Okay, so is it possible to tweak my voice to sound like Eminem? I mean,
probably, but not in Objekt.
there you go. That's the answer. Exactly. Yeah, here's some more people talking about this Objekt AI sample scanner. I get what you guys are asking for. Yeah. It would be cool. I personally, I'm skeptical that those things work. I'm skeptical of any of those things. Like there's, even in mixing tools, there's like EQ where it's like analyze some other mix and then apply that to your mix and you'll get the same like.
They're getting better and better. It's interesting technology for sure.
I'm all for them exploring it, but it's so far some of those fall short. But David Henerato says it's super glued to the rack. That may be true. That could be true. Epoxied or something. I love the idea that it's like a meter deep.
There's actually one really good question that I haven't covered. So, can I fine tune Objekt to the sound of a song? Pitch is there but too blunt. So, one of the things to remember with working with Objekt is physical modeling is quite unpredictable. Like it's based on feedback interacting, so a lot of things can happen, and you hear that pretty clearly if I set up a basic sound like this and use something like dispersion. I start getting, quite an inharmonic sound. And you can easily end up here, especially if you just randomize. You end up with a sound and you go, okay, cool sound, I want to play it in my song now, right? I just want to damp it a little bit. But then you bring in another patch and you play a C on that patch. Oh no, they're not in tune.
They're not in tune. Yep.
We know this can happen pretty easily. So that's why there's a little tuner up to the right where you can simply have a sound, click, analyze, it goes, yeah, this is a B2. Maybe you're happy with that, but you can also just fix it.
Right,
and it matches. And it's important to know that there will be tons of sounds we can't fix. Like a snare drum doesn't necessarily have a strong pitch.
Right.
Like a cymbal doesn't have a strong pitch. So this listens to the sound and goes, is there a clear kind of fundamental note?
Right.
Is there a strong tone that kind of implies the pitch? If so, we'll try to correct it.
The rule I kind of have is if I can't sing the pitch of the note I'm playing, then
it's gonna be tricky.
Yeah.
But even if you kind of it's not quite right, then you have the tuning here.
Oh, okay. That's
where
fine
you can
tuning.
that's really fine tuning.
And is that moving in? It's not cents even. That's some other scale.
It's just a lot.
Okay.
And it depends. So pitch is kind of wonky when you get to feedback and stuff because the pitch isn't really linear all the time. This gets technical, but you can end up with sounds where they sound in tune for 2 octaves, and then if you go up further, they start getting out of tune. And that's because there gets a point when the delays they kind of become too short.
I see.
Can't really be shorter. That's actually why there's a key track plus here, Key track plus, if you adjust that, it kind of adjusts the tuning of the key tracking of the upper frequencies.
Okay.
So if you ever end up with a patch that like sounds fine down here and then starts going off over here, try adjusting the key track plus. So there are ways to get stuff in tune for sure.
Now, I have a question for you that came up from someone, raples.nl or rapples.nl. If it's easy to jump back to it, he asks, can you create a sound with Objekt that resembles the strumming of a reggae guitar? And I wonder if, is that guitar thing nearby? Or is it?
It's kind of not. I plugged it out when I was done with that.
No problem. Well, then in that case, I would just say to you, Rapples or Raples, we did cover it on the stream, not reggae, but we did cover strumming and guitar on the stream earlier on. So if you jump back, you will see at some point Mattias holding a guitar in the stream, and that's when we're doing that. And the answer is yes, you can.
Exactly.
So that's certainly true. I do have, dare I try and open this? I got a file from mein Vegas producer called 230517 Das ist Challenge, which I'm probably butchering that. But I'm going to open it, and maybe we can at least listen to it. If not, share it on screen. Or maybe I can just share it on screen. Hang on a second. Let me try this. Dare I do this? If I go Reason...
And now's the point where it's just really, really strong feedback patches.
Yeah, right. Okay, so I did get his patch. We haven't heard this yet, but we will take a listen to this, I guess, live. I'm just going to hit play. This was all done with Objekt, and it looks like... I don't know
audio
if these
tracks feeding into them.
Yeah, audio tracks feeding into them, maybe? Okay, let's just take a listen here.
So I think every single object is played by audio.
Is that what's happening? Let's see. It's
it looks like it. There's an audio track per object. And
there you go. Right.
Maybe it's all vocals, for example.
We got a direct out. Yep, going to external in on the cajon. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. The bass drum. Yeah. Everything exactly. Everything is being run by external ins. Cool. Well, thanks for sharing. Mein Vegas producer or Philip. That's awesome. That's cool to see. I have done tracks using all Objekt. I have not done tracks using all Objekt via external input only. That is a no for me. So.
I've done a lot of every demo track I made ended up becoming only Objekt. I was just kind of it happened because there were so many sounds I wanted to try.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah.
I was actually when I started making the announcement video. I had the plan to use Objekt for every sound, but then I had this like, I don't know if that's going to work. But it did. So
I kind of want to end on a note that's a little less technical and a little more musical that I think is kind of an important just thing to remember that, yes, that's what we're doing, right? Music.
Right.
So one of the really nice things with having stuff that sounds real like this hang drum is that it sounds very real, right? However, there's a bunch of genres where you definitely don't want some doofus playing a realistic hang drum. Just there's a lot of hip hop where it's much more sample based, and there's a lot of it's a recording of someone doing it, but it's chopped up.
Yeah. And
one of the things that's very easy to forget is, what do you often sample? Well, you tend to sample people playing real instruments, because that's this quality that you can't really get from synthesizer, and it gets this kind of organic sound. Objekt is fantastic for resampling. It's one of my favorite things to do with it. So if I were to just kind of play some random notes here in a way that you would play a hang drum, for example. It doesn't have to be tight or anything.
Okay.
This is really nice to just bounce in place and then save as a sample. And use this in, say, a mimic. Oops, and let's go back and just drag this into mimic. And have the slice markers, and suddenly you have this kind of this kind of performance that it, you know, a real instrument that was played in a weird way, but you can start triggering it, and you can start, you know,
flipping your own samples.
Exactly, pitching it down, adding a little bit of noise, a bit of compression. Actually,
That really gets an instantly weird quality to it. That's very cool.
and I think that's really, really fun, especially if you use the more advanced stretch modes and just bring down the speed a lot.
I love that right now, you know, there are probably 200 different people thinking of 200 different ways to take what you're playing and develop that track. Because I'm hearing it and I go, ooh, I know what I would do with this. But there's probably other people that are hearing other things.
I think that's one of those things that's easy to forget. It's like one of the best ways to make cool samples that you kind of just chop up is to just play a little bit.
Right.
Objekt is a great instrument for it. I use radical piano and radical keys for that all the time too, and just kind of randomly play some jazzy chords without thinking about tempo or timing or anything.
Right.
And then you think about the tempo or timing when you're playing the slices, right?
Interesting. Moth Super is saying, now attach an ARP, and I'm thinking, attach a pattern mutator, and
exactly.
People getting into the modularity thinking of this, you know.
Yeah. So I think that's it's a really fun way to use, in particular, Objekt, especially stuff like the, you know, the like stuff that's more realistic, like the bass.
Right. It's funny right away.
That's like instant a Tribe Called Quest loop, right?
King Skarksy on Twitch watching us says, I want that sample that you just made, you know, like it instantly is.
I think just going beyond the Objekt for a second, it's great to do that with like entire chunks of your old songs, like the Reason document from 5 years ago, export that, put that in Mimic, remove some of the bass and play that. So
and there you go.
I think it's important, like it's fun to talk about the geeky stuff, but it's important to remember that at the end of the day, like sometimes you just want some other way to make music, right?
Right, exactly. Michael is asking us, he says, let's make a damn song, 4 more hours.
But I need to eat dinner.
I know. I've kept you here long enough, Mattias. I'm going to, you know, the casualty of doing these at 7 o'clock your time means that every moment past 9 o'clock is like, you know, super curfew.
He's getting into torture territory.
Like I'm just being cruel by keeping. Because to me it's noon. I'm with you, Michael. We could just go for another 4 hours and really do this. But I think we do need to be humane to Mattias and let Mattias get home to his hairless cat and other weird things that are in his apartment, I'm sure.
There's this game called Zelda. I don't know if
oh, right. That's right. Yeah. Have you caught up finally? Or have you not gotten
I'm actually, now I'm not allowed to play that much because my girlfriend is very much behind and we share a TV, so it's spoiler territory.
Oh, of course, right. Some people were speculating, or not me speculating, I think they were recognizing that, is it Gerudo Santor is actually named after Zelda? Or
Yeah. Absolutely.
So,
there's if you're looking for them, you'll find probably up to like 100 various patch names referencing video games I like.
Right.
I don't think anyone will find them all, but hey, if you do, impressive.
Hyper Vinylator has captured your mood from hang to hangry. That's great. Well, listen, just other people saying, you know, thanks for what we're doing and all that stuff. I agree with you, you know, and we think likewise of the whole Reason community. We thank you guys for showing up and hanging out with us and just, you know, making this the fun sort of live stream hangs that they always are. So, Mattias, I want to thank you for your time, your expertise, your skill at explaining what are complicated things. I always get inspired from these. And, you know, Michael, I'll tell you, I probably will actually for the next few hours go and make some music. That actually is probably where I'm headed. So I hope you guys are too. And I hope we try some of the stuff. And if you do try some of the stuff we did on this live stream, by all means, like, you know, send it to us. You know, tweet us and add us and do whatever you do with us and tag us on Instagram or whatever, but because we look for that stuff, we see that stuff. When you do make music using these techniques, it excites us, and I think we have the capability to even share that stuff out to the rest of the Reason community. So we'll certainly do that. Cool. Well, guys, that is it. Mattias, I'm going to let you wave goodbye.
Goodbye.
And I'm going to say a quick goodbye to everybody here as well.
And also, you should not forget, just so no one gets very, very sad tomorrow, that today is the last day.
Today's last day, yes. Last day of the introductory price. Thank you, Mattias. I will point that out. Yes, people, if you've been watching, if you like Objekt, if you like what you're hearing and you want to get Objekt, you can get it anytime through Reason Plus. Subscribe to Reason Plus, and it's one of the devices that you just get as part of your Reason Plus subscription. Plus, you also get all the sound packs and continual patches that will be coming out for Objekt and all of Reason as part of Reason Plus. If subscriptions aren't for you and you want to just buy it outright, Mattias was correct. There is an introductory offer. It expires at the end of today. So if you're the person who likes things on sale, this is the sale moment to get it. And tomorrow when you wake up, it'll go back to full price. So, but anyway, that's the salesy part of things. Just to let you know, I just don't, like Mattias said, we don't want you to be bummed out tomorrow if you wake up and find out that you missed an opportunity there. But guys, thank you again for joining us. I have so much fun every single time with you. We're going to be doing more live streams over the summer. Schedule is TBD, but keep a lookout for when we're going to be on again, because I'll be with you and you'll be here and we're going to make some music and have fun. So we'll see you next time.